All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lasting Learning Podcast. I swear each episode just keeps getting better and better and better because I keep getting the opportunity to sit next to people that I admire, that I truly I worship, and I follow their every move. And today is no exception. Today we have a guy on who I have been following for more than a decade, 15, 20 years or so. I've read just about everything that he has put out. I follow every single word that he preaches like it's the gospel. We have a man here who is filled with wisdom. He is a professor of ed leadership, just like me. So kindred spirits. He is a former teacher, former basketball coach. If you follow him online, right now he is missing out on being able to sit courtside watching his Missouri Tigers play basketball because he was at just about every game in years past. But instead of being there, today he's here. Fresh off another keynote address, I have the one, the only, the monkey shifting Todd Whitaker joining us. Todd, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dave. I guarantee for the audience, the introduction is going to be better than the session. So I appreciate you doing such a good job with that. Let me tell you. Thank you.
I doubt it. You are a man that is filled with wisdom, and one of the things I really appreciate about you is that you kind of just don't hold back. If you've got something to say, you say it. Your beliefs, you wear them on your sleeve, and you put them into your books and into your writings and into your keynotes. And as I said, fresh off a keynote this morning. So first of all, how did that go? And then let's rewind and talk a little bit about you. So how did the keynote go this morning?
Well, it's interesting. You said filled with wisdom. Other people say full of it. So it's kind of a similar thing. You have to ask the audience. I mean, it seemed like it went well to me. It's a strange thing because I present all the time, everywhere. And I always tell people the truth. I go, I don't have a plan. I don't have a plan. It's just a belief system, and it's just sharing the belief system. And once people understand the belief system and put it into practice, they literally can do anything. But until they do, they just can't. I know it's a strange thing. We just get caught up on little details all the time. But once we understand a belief system, like make every decision based on your best teachers, you literally can do anything. But until you understand that, you can't be effective. You're always going to be running up in limits. So, we spend so much time on the next thing and so little time on the important things. And once we do the important things, our world changes. It's like principals that say, I don't have time to go in classrooms. I said, well, you don't have time to go in classrooms because you didn't go in classrooms last year and you have the same ineffective people doing the same ineffective things.
Boom.
And if you do anything to improve it, you have time to go in classrooms. The other thing I think that's funny, and I used to teach my assistant principals this, and I was a principal at 25. And so I learned it myself. The student who gets sent to the office is the least important student in the school. And we make them out to be the most important student in the school. And it's nothing to do with devaluing that person. At that time, they are not learning. They are out of a learning environment. So why on earth do I rush to spend time with that student when in my last school I had 1,349 other students doing the right thing? So who am I going to spend my time with? And I'm not, and I have to teach other people this. I'm not in a hurry to deal with that student because if you think about it, there's probably not a teacher in the school in a hurry to get them back.
Wow. Dropping truth right off the get-go.
Well, I don't know if it's truth, but it's a belief system, and it's nothing to do with devaluing. Nobody's going to treat that student with more respect, and nobody's going to defend the teachers more than I am. But if you think about it, many times the most challenging kids are sent from the teachers who struggle the most. And if your secretary is good, they can deal with 3 dysfunctional students better than your 3 worst teachers can deal with 3 dysfunctional students. But it's teaching your teachers to be effective, or else nothing in your school ever changes. Nothing ever changes.
So good. You talk about making decisions based off of your best teachers, and you talk all the time about what constitutes a best teacher or a great teacher, what great teachers do differently. Were you a great teacher? Were you one of the best teachers back in the day?
I taught on personality, and other teachers had like lesson plans and stuff, which was a huge advantage for them. But I don't know, you have to ask the students. I don't know. How do you know? I was a math teacher and basketball coach, and it's funny, I'm still in contact with tons of my students, which is really a strange thing. But I think I cared and tried every day, and I'm halfway decent at explaining.
Yeah. Would you
And
consider yourself a teacher today?
I consider it. Whether the people I talk to consider it is another question. But um, the thing I thought that was interesting is, I'll tell you a story, and it's so funny because I just told this story last week, and I haven't told this story in a long time. And the person goes, "Oh, well, this student's dad is in my. I have this student's children in my school right now," which is funny. Anyhow, I had a student named Curtis, and that was a little tiny school, Keatsville, Missouri, which is a suburb of Brunswick, which is a joke in Brunswick. But anyhow, I was in Keatsville, Missouri, and there was a student named Curtis who slept in every class. And I was his math teacher. And I thought it was interesting because I'd see him and he'd sleep in every class. And he had a gift I wish I had. He had the ability to sleep 48 minutes out of every 50-minute segment of his life. So he would come into class, snuggle in, sleep like a rock for 48 minutes, somehow wake up with 1 minute to go in class, put his stuff together, and then leave. And he could do it in every class. I was the only teacher that didn't like it because I thought it was a reflection on me. And the reason I thought it was a reflection on me, Dave, because it was a reflection on me. Mm. And so I've got to figure out what, because if he's sleeping, if my class is so poor, he's sleeping every class, there's got to be other kids drowsy. There have to be other kids drowsy. So I thought, what can I do? Because I felt like it was my obligation. And it was a math class. And so after about 2 weeks, I told Curtis, I said, he came into class and go, "Curtis, I need your help. I'm no good. I'm not a very good teacher. I don't really know what I'm doing." You can tell that from just the slobber that runs out of my mouth quite often. But I was wondering if I could get your help with something. I'm afraid I don't call on boys and girls evenly in class. So I was wondering if I could give you a seating chart and you could just put little marks by kids' names whenever I call on them. And that way, at the end of class, we could see if I called on boys and girls the same. Curtis comes in, I give him the seating chart. At the end of class, I go, "Curtis, what did I call on more, boys or girls?" Well, Curtis looks at me sheepishly, hands me the seating chart, and it had a puddle of his spittle from him sleeping on the seating chart. You always treat kids as if they were good, and you always look at their windshield rather than the rearview mirror anytime you can. And the next day he comes in, and I go, "Curtis, I put a line down the middle of the thing because I'm worried I call on the left side more than the right side. So if you could put marks there." Curtis, then the next day, at the front and the back, Curtis eventually starts marking. But you know when I had him? When Curtis goes, "Mr. Whitaker, when I answer questions, should I put marks by my name?" And then Curtis started doing fractions off the thing, started doing ratios, started doing percentages, and then I'd even have stuff like, "Curtis, what I want you to do is put a Y or an N next to a V or an N next to the kid's name when I call on him." He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "A V means they were a volunteer and their hand was up. And an N means they were a non-volunteer and their hand wasn't up. And that way I know, do I get to call on Dave sometimes when he's volunteering, sometimes when he isn't?" Well, the whole purpose was for Curtis to be engaged. And I didn't care. I didn't tally anything. I didn't do anything with that, but I got him engaged. And it's just, and that's part of where a lot of things I talk about are doing things indirectly. If you'd like to change the culture of your school, the two words you never say are culture and change. You just start changing it's like I get calls constantly to do workshops, which is ridiculous because I'm kind of an idiot. And somebody will call me and ask me to do a workshop on team building. And I go, "Great. Why don't we call it team building? And that way everyone can vomit at the same time." I'm pretty sure that was an Office episode. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure it was. Or we could do a workshop that's valued, do some activities, and at the end of it, evaluate it. And people will say, "I like that part when we all work together and got in groups." I go, "Really? Well, we could try doing that some more if you want." Because if it's your idea, it's always a good idea. If it's my idea, you never know. And so it's thinking like that. But I felt like that was my obligation to figure out how I have to be good enough to get Curtis to be engaged.
I love that story. First of all, it gives you some practical experience. And I think people look at it and say, okay, you've lived it, you've done it. But you also mentioned that you became an administrator at an early age and started off on your leadership journey, which is both exciting and a struggle and a challenge, because oftentimes when you're at that early age, you're trying to figure out your own identity, trying to figure out how to navigate your own way. What you just provided was a practical tool, some practical tips that new leaders, emerging leaders, evolving leaders can grapple onto and say, okay, that is something for me to think about and possibly implement in my practice tomorrow or even next year.
Right.
When you were starting off on your journey, did you have the same mindset of it's got to be purpose driven, it's got to be vision driven, or were you literally trying to pull tools out of the toolbox and just piece things together day in and day out?
What really helped me was I was terrible as a student. I graduated in the bottom third of my class. I was in trouble all the time. My theory was if it wasn't good enough, it wouldn't be the minimum. One time I brought a grade card home. My dad was mad. My dad goes, Todd, all of your grades are terrible. I said, Dad, they're not all terrible. I got a B in reading. He goes, that's a D, you idiot. Anyhow, one of the things that was interesting is I knew how different I was in the best teacher's class, an average teacher's class, and the worst teacher's class. And I was literally afraid of me. I was the first person to graduate from college in my family on either side. And what's interesting is my dad used to say, those who can do and those who can't teach. And I realized, I think what he meant to say was those who can teach and those who can't go into some much less significant line of work. And it's just, so what can I do to keep people engaged? What can I do, for this? The other inspiration to go into administration so quickly was I coached basketball and I was a math teacher and I was fine, whatever. And there would be kids that I had either on my basketball team or in my class, like sitting in the hallway for punishment. And I always remember walking down the hall thinking, if you can't deal with this kid, your life's got to be horrible about the other teachers. But if I could teach them how to be more effective, that would help them and the students in the school versus just in my little world. And that's kind of went, and then it's like you went into higher ed because you want to teach people how to be more effective principals because your influence is larger than your influence was in a particular building or a particular district. So yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. So I'm wondering, when you were an administrator, when you were a building level administrator, did you have teachers that struggled with your style, who didn't necessarily know the Todd Whitaker way, or were people adapting and adjusting and fully embracing that culture that you never necessarily mentioned?
It's funny. I never thought about anybody struggling with my style. I thought about them struggling in the classroom. And it's really interesting. I need my teachers to do two things, and I need them to do them every day. Here are the two things I need people to do every day. My teachers do every day, Dave. I need them to care and try. And if you care and try, I can help you with everything. But if you don't care and try, I can't have you in my school. And I need you to do them every day. And that's hard. But that's why we have vacations in education. That's why we have summer stuff, because our jobs are really, really, really hard. So I never thought about it related to my style. I never thought about that at all. If you teach people how to, what's interesting is I got Curtis to do what I want. There was no punishment. I could have hammered Curtis every day of my life, but he got hammered. If you saw him, he's a beaten dog, and it's the same way with teachers. I think once you teach people how to get better, they all do it. But if you tell them how to get better, they don't do it because they don't know how. In a school, the people that can figure it out on their own have already figured it out on their own. Think about it at your university. You have professors that have figured it out on their own and how to be effective in teaching. Sure. And you have others that'll never figure it out. And the challenge is potentially you have leaders that don't know how to teach the others how to figure it out.
Do you have leaders that have a hard time adjusting to your style? I feel like there's a lot of leaders out there that just want to be given a script and say, here's what you need to do. Here's how to go lead, regardless of your circumstance, regardless of your school, just go do. Do you have people that hear your words and then have a hard time putting into practice?
You mean besides like my spouse? No. I don't know, probably, but they don't have to. Who would, they can just ignore me or whatever. It's interesting. One of the things that I do when I present, and it's the same way with anybody that happens to hear this, is people can call me or email me anytime they want to. My Twitter's at Todd Whitaker. My website's at toddwhitaker.com. I don't have any people. It's just me, because I don't want people to do it wrong. And this isn't a general anything. It's specifically how do we do it. So, it's funny. I almost called the book What Great Principals Do Differently. I almost called it It's Simple, It's Just Not Always Easy. And caring and trying is very simple. It's just not always easy. And one of the things that I've gotten into recently, which is really strange because you're probably thinking I'm taking steps backwards, is classroom management.
Mm.
And part of the reason is, think about this. What percentage of teachers in a school would like their job better if they were better at classroom management? Dave, what percent would like their job better if they were better at classroom management?
100?
Right. But you know what's really critical? What percent would significantly like their job better? That's a guess. It's going to be school to school. It's not 100 because your best
Yeah.
people are so close to,
Yeah.
but it's half, right?
Yeah.
So, and think about this, classroom management is selfish. If any of us could get the kids to behave better, what would we do?
If we could do it, we would do it.
We would do it. Dave, do you have children?
I do. I have 4.
Okay. If any parent could get their kids to behave better, what would they do?
They would behave better.
You would get them to behave better, right? Have you been holding back on that, Dave? Or are you doing the best you know
I
how?
am doing all I can.
Now, if I told you to get your kids to behave better, you'd push back at me. You'd go, who is this guy? What is it? But if I taught you to get your kids to behave better, you'd follow me around like the Pied Piper, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
But what happens is people tell you because they don't know how to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Think about a principal that tells teachers to call parents. I would never tell teachers to call parents. I teach you how to call parents. And all of a sudden now you're willing to try it. It's sort of like, what do I say if the parent says my child never lies to me? Well, if I don't know what to say when I call the parent, I'm afraid to call any parent. But once you learn how to deal with this, and I teach people how to do it, you're not afraid to call parents anymore.
So break that down a little bit. What is the difference between teaching and telling? So if I'm a teacher in your building and I come to you and say, little Johnny in my class, he's a mess. You say, have you called the parent yet? And I say, no. Do you say, call the parent, or do you say, hey, let's call together? What does that look like?
Okay. Well, there's a couple things. One is you're also at the point where, what have I done before now? You know, so you're saying, you know, I haven't had anything to do with you. It's April. Your class is completely destroyed. And now I'm wondering what one sentence to give you an advice. Or is it I'm in your class on a regular basis, I'm constantly doing things, and then you share this. And so it has to start, you know, we have to be in classrooms on a daily basis. Yeah. You can't improve people's free performance from the office. And we've tried that one. And principals go, I'm too busy. And I go, but what's the most important time of year to be in classrooms? The start of the year. What's the easiest time of year to be in classrooms? The start of the year. You tell me what you're going to do if it's late April and the class is completely out of control and you've done nothing to help them. You're going to just close the door and tiptoe away. So I think it's in that circumstance. I've also been in their room. I've seen what they've done. I've had conversations, but then now this happened, and that's okay. In this circumstance, I ask them what happened. And you know, the next thing I ask teachers, like if they send a kid to the office, you know, the next thing I ask, what would you like me to do? Do you know why I ask their opinion, Dave?
Go for it, because it matters. You want their buy-in. You want them to.
Because they've got an opinion and they're going to share it with somebody.
That's the truth.
And they can share it with me or share it in the teacher's lounge. And nobody in the teacher's lounge can help them. And I can. And I go, what do you think ought to happen? And I mean it sincerely. I can't. But why don't principals ask what they think ought to happen? Because what are you afraid of?
That they're going to disagree.
They're going to want more than you can give.
Yep.
But understand, they want more than you can give, whether you ask them or not. But at least I know now. So if a teacher sends a kid to the office, I go to the teacher in person, but I don't sprint. What's my hurry? I'm going to keep the kid in the office. I'm not in a hurry to deal with the kid. Why would I be in a hurry to deal with the teacher? Assuming it's a routine situation. I'm not talking about a kid is bit by the boa constrictor, you know, and I'm letting it swell up. So I'll go to the teacher and I'll go, tell me what happened with Kevin. They tell me, and I go, tell me what you think ought to happen. Is their response more likely to be tempered 45 minutes than it is 45 seconds after it happened?
Oh, absolutely.
So then, and anyhow, they say he didn't bring a pencil to class. And I use this example because it's the lowest level of thing, but it's also true in many schools. And I go, what do you think ought to happen? And they go, I think we ought to suspend him 3 days. And I say, with no snark, I say, I understand how frustrating it is when a kid doesn't come to class prepared. I truly understand, especially on a chronic, if they're chronic about it. That is so frustrating. Let me share with you my dilemma. I've got Kevin down in the office who didn't bring a pencil to class. And I've got another student who just said F you to a teacher's face. I feel obligated to differentiate between those two things. Do you feel, and there's no snark, I'm being casual with the audience, but I go, do you feel like there's a difference between when a student doesn't bring a pencil to class, which is so frustrating, and a student says F you to your face? What does every teacher in the world say?
Absolutely, there's a difference. But
That's why I can't do it.
yeah, that's good.
But let me explain choices I can do.
Yeah.
I could, and I go give them to 10. I mean, whatever your little list of things are.
Hmm.
And this is the reason I can't do it. And what happens is then I'm providing a broader perspective than they have.
So
And people learn from that.
yeah, absolutely. So take this to that next level, because you talked early on that you are a firm believer in making decisions as if everybody were the best, or thinking about that best teacher when you're making decisions.
Every decision.
Every decision. So when you have a teacher, a student, a person who is chronically not acting as though they were one of the best, but they are constantly pulling on your time, pulling on your attention, pulling on your pant leg for that attention. This is kind of an ode to the book I have over my shoulder, shifting some monkeys here. How do you find that balance between teaching, supporting, and also, in a sense, ignoring?
Okay. I think that one of the things to realize is you have to remember what this person's like typically. In other words, I one school I took over, and I had a teacher, and I saw the teacher, on a regular basis, and I go and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And they go, "My third hour is killing me. They are killing me. That third hour is killing me, killing me, killing me, killing me." I'm new. I don't know if they always have a problem or if this is their first problem ever. Anyhow, I work with this person, and I'm new, and I think I'm going to be hero boy. I'm going to be hero. I go, tell me your 4 worst kids. I go, I'm going to take them out of third hour and give them to different teachers and disperse them all. It's a large school, so I could disperse them. And I did that. And the next day I see her, and I'm waiting for her to hug me and thank me for doing this. And I go, "Hey, how's your day going?" And she goes, "Not so well." I go, "Oh, what's wrong?" She goes, "7th hour is killing me." I learned I can't solve this.
Yeah.
This is an unsolvable person. So I'm going to put my time and energy into solvable things. But if I hadn't worked that, I wouldn't know if she was solvable or not. And so, but you have to remember, I had a teacher who goes, the problem is here, we can never get a new pencil sharpener. We can never get a new pencil sharpener. You know what's strange, Dave? I don't know if that represents something, if it is just a pencil sharpener, or if they're a complainer. So what am I going to have to do to know that? Fix it. And the next day, if I see them and I go, "Hey, how you doing?" They go, "Great, how are you?" You know what? It was a pencil sharpener, or it represented frustration.
Mm-hmm.
But if they go, "The problem is here, we never get a new trash can, never get a new trash can." You know what I realize? I'm going to take that pencil sharpener and go give it to somebody else. I'm not really going to do that, but
Sure.
because I don't have any interest. Friends may come and friends may go, and enemies last a lifetime. But the idea of working with challenging people is very easy. Make every decision based on your best teachers. Mm. If your school starts at 8, if kids get there at 8, and teachers are supposed to be there at 7:30. So do you get it? Kids get there at 8, teachers are supposed to get there at 7:30. Does your best teacher care if a teacher gets there at 7:45? Nope. It has nothing to do with teaching and learning, does it?
Not at all.
So do I need to deal with that teacher? Does your best teacher care if a teacher gets to their class at 8:05?
If kids are there 8?
Yep. So guess which one I need to deal with?
Yeah, there you go.
And I always treat difficult people as if the best people were watching, because they want me to deal with them. They just want me to deal with them in a respectful and professional manner. The other thing about great teachers, that every decision you make, you just do what great teachers do with students, and you never make a wrong decision. It's sort of like, which misbehavior do you deal with? You know what the great teacher's thinking? Whichever one is disruptive to the good kids. If this behavior, the kid's sitting there with his knee up and none of the good kids even notice, the great teacher doesn't care. But if the kid's doing something that's harmful, threatening to the good kids, and good kids just means everybody else, the teacher deals with it. But they don't ever humiliate that kid, because the good kids wouldn't like that. So I call it the best teacher, worst teacher test. Anytime I work with a challenging person, I'm talking about an employee, a teacher, I'm assuming they run in the teacher's lounge and tell the best teacher and the worst teacher in the school what I just did. And the best teacher should be thinking, yes, no, 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 no. And the worst teacher should be thinking, oh no, I don't want to be next. But if I handle it wrong, see, just think this, a teacher sends a kid to the office and I do nothing. The worst teacher sends a kid to the office and I do nothing. That worst teacher tells everybody. And you know what the best teacher thinks? Maybe I shouldn't send anybody to the office ever. And average teachers start to lose confidence. So I have to deal with that person professionally.
Yeah.
And I also have, and I'm extremely comfortable telling people no. I'd rather, and I'm always nice. I mean, I will always be nice. I will never be disrespectful or rude. Never. Just think you have a faculty meeting, you have a negative personality trying to dominate the faculty meeting. And first of all, if you've seen my book, Dealing with Difficult Teachers, you have to rearrange the room, seating chart, all this stuff. But anyhow, I have a teacher who's dominating the faculty meeting off topic. And I know it's someone ineffective, and I know the good people don't like this person. And they're going, what about this? What about this? What about this? And just interrupting. And I say to them, let's pretend it's you, Dave. I say to them, I go, Dave, I think that is an incredibly important thing that you have, that you'd mentioned. I think it's really a valuable thing. I feel like I'd like to spend more time on that. So if someday next week, if there's a morning you could come in, I usually get here about 5:45 or so. If there's a morning you could come in, I would love to learn more about that. That would be very helpful for me. Have I shut you up?
In that moment, and you've given them the opportunity at an inconvenient time to come converse. That's it.
And did I annoy the rest of the teachers?
You have made the teachers very happy.
And did I do it in an insulting way?
Not at all.
Because Dave, I treat you like you're the best teacher. So if you were the best teacher and you did that, and I said, some morning next week, if you could come in, I'm there at 5:45. What are you going to do? You're going to bring in a casserole.
That's it.
Right. And you're going to be honored to have that time. What I did is I put it on what it really is. And this is the way we sort out. And this is part of the shifting the monkey is now you decide if it's worth your time rather than my time and everybody else's time.
Todd, everything you say makes so much sense. I think people are listening to this being like, yes, why don't more people do this? It makes so much sense. It's not, you're not talking teaching and learning. You're not talking pedagogy. It almost rings like common sense.
It's almost,
but it's not.
Sense, isn't it? No.
But it's not. Where did we miss the mark?
I can tell you what it is we're around so much average. We think average is right. Your best teacher does this stuff all the time. It's just the other 90% don't. And your best principals do this all the time. But if you've never worked with a great principal, why would you even think that? Great principals, without exception, how many things can you say absolute like this? Great principals have faculty meetings teachers look forward to and value. Now, they could be different formats, different structures, different ways of doing it. So I'm not saying it has to be principal driven, but they have faculty meetings teachers look forward to and value. Other principals either don't have faculty meetings or people don't look forward to and value. Well, if you've worked with an average principal, you've never seen a faculty meeting people value. So you're a principal, you don't even think it's weird that the teachers are just completely disinterested in your faculty meeting.
Wow. So much I want to ask. I'm going to ask about you real quick. Did you realize when you were doing things that you were not average, that the way that you were operating and behaving was not like everybody else?
I thought it was. I thought everybody did this. I don't know, but see, think about this. Teaching is the most isolated profession there is, and you're never alone. You know, that's what's weird. You're never alone, and it's the most isolated profession there is. So as a principal, when I took over a school, and my first book was Dealing with Difficult Teachers, and it's 3 editions of it now. And at the end of my first year, my 5 worst teachers were gone. I didn't document anyone about anything, and the rest of the faculty voted unanimously to extend the school day by 20 minutes with no pay. I thought everybody did this stuff, but I did it, Dave, because of insecurity. I'm really weird in lots of ways, as you know. That's why you wanted me in Zoom instead of in person. I will make a note, though, that the camera adds 10 pounds and I got like 7 cameras on me, so do the math. But I'm one of the few principals I've ever known, because it's my insecurity. I would rather deal with a teacher who's wrong than deal with a parent who's right. And you have certain teachers that you constantly have to deal with parents who are right. How can you look those people in the eye? And I'm not talking about a good teacher who's done some, who cares? You know, if a good teacher did something, we all make mistakes, but if a good teacher, what do they want to do? They want to repair it.
They want to fix it, that's it.
They're going, would you care if I called them and apologized? Could I take some cookies over to their house on Sunday? You know, I mean, they want to repair it. So I'm talking about the chronics. But most people spend their time dealing with parents who are right and never do anything about the teacher who's wrong.
Wow.
And think about this. People talk about a 90-10 ratio, that 10% of the kids take up 90% of your time. That's stupid. 10% of your teachers send 90% of the kids. And if I don't do anything about them, An example I use a lot, and I don't want to go into great detail about it just because of wasting your time and the audience's time. I was principal and I started dealing with bus discipline. Dave, have you ever dealt with bus discipline?
Oh my gosh. Too much. Yes.
I consider bus discipline almost like a festival.
Yeah.
It's like a Mardi Gras with less beads. That's how much fun bus discipline is. And Dave, did you know every principal, you're in Michigan, every principal in Michigan and in every other place in the world has to make a decision. And they've already made the decision. Here's your decision. Should I teach the bus drivers how to manage kids? Or should I whine about the fact that bus drivers don't know how to manage kids? I'm going to teach them because my job's easier.
That's good.
Most people whine because they either don't know how to teach them or have never thought of it. And the thing that's interesting though is there's no pushback. If I teach you in a way that you learn and value it, you like your job better.
Right.
You know, it's selfish to you. That's how come I do so much with student management, because it's selfish to the teachers. And if I can teach them things that work, and then they think I'm smarter than I am. And the other thing is, think about this approach, Dave. Most people say things like this. They'll say this to a teacher they want to improve. And it could be a good teacher, average teacher, poor teacher, doesn't matter. They say this is the language they use. Do you know something you should try? When I say, do you know something you should try? What am I really saying?
Well, it depends on the relationship we have. And I know that you're not necessarily being condescending. So you're probably
no, but it sounds you said that word because it sounds like I'm better than you.
Yeah.
Right. Tell me which teachers in your school appreciate people talking to them like that.
Oh, not a whole lot.
None. But we do it all the time.
Yeah.
And do you know how I lead? Underneath you, below you. I'm less smart than you. You know what I say to teachers? You know something I saw somebody do the other day? You guys are like geniuses. You know what I saw somebody do? I've never thought of this. I saw them do. Am I teaching you?
That's it.
But we're learning together, aren't we? There's no pushback.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I'm too dumb to think of it.
That's good. Is that how you operate when you're teaching educational leaders? When you're working with principals, do you teach from a place of experience and here's what I did? Or is it, well, you guys are amazing, let me stand beside you? Does it work the same way?
I never say, here's what I did, because immediately I think that's gross. But you also know I don't sell t-shirts, so keep that in mind. And I'm sure some of your other guests have, and good for them, but it's like puke and vomit. You can edit that or not,
You're good, go for it.
Yeah, but I think there's a little bit of a difference in leaders and teachers. I think you don't have any leaders that truly do not care. And you have a very small portion of teachers that truly do not care. So because of that, I operate on the assumption that there's a little bit different. But it's the same thing. I'm teaching the same way, the same thing to everybody. If you've read my book, What Great Teachers Do Differently and What Great Principals Do Differently, people will say, Todd, there's a lot of overlap. And I say, I'm hoping. It's exactly the same skill set. I lead like my best teacher teaches. When I talk about dealing with difficult teachers, I talk about rearranging the faculty meeting, especially of emotionally reserved seating for your negative people. Does your best teacher just let the 3 worst kids sit in the back? They never do that, but they don't hammer them. See, that's the other difference. It's interesting. If you think about superstars, backbones, and mediocres, I write about that a lot. But if you think of it in that category, sadly, the group that's most different is superstars and backbones. Backbones are never superstars, but at times they're mediocre. At times they get down in that complaining at times. And I want you to think about this, and you can teach your teachers this. You cannot believe how much your teachers will learn. They want to be good. They want to be good. And if they don't care and try, that's a different issue. But that's 1 or 2 people in a school, okay? They want to be good. What was I just going to say?
Teaching, training, the difference between working with leaders versus working with teachers.
Yeah, it was superstars,
backbones. Yeah.
Think about this. When a student misbehaves in a truly great teacher's classroom, do you know what the great teacher wants, Dave?
What's that?
Prevention.
Mm.
They want it not to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
When a kid misbehaves in an average teacher and below average teacher's classroom, what is it they want?
They just want the kid gone.
They want revenge.
Yeah,
They want a public bloodletting.
that's it.
Think about this. Think of a clip chart. And I do a whole thing on clip charts, and people think clip chart, they go, doesn't that humiliate kids? I go, of course not. The teacher humiliates kids. Your best teacher could use a clip chart for 30 years and they're never going to humiliate a single student. Your teacher that humiliates kids using a clip chart, take away the clip chart, they'll continue to humiliate kids because it's in their blood.
Mm.
Okay. But mostly because you have to determine, are people ignorant or insubordinate? We almost always think they're insubordinate. They're almost always ignorant. They're unaware. Think about this. If a great teacher is using a clip chart where I move a marker down next to a kid's name if they misbehave, can I tell you something great teachers do every single time?
What's that?
When they clip the kid down, they do not look at the chart and they do not look at the kid. They don't need revenge.
Mm.
They need prevention.
Mm.
Your average teachers, Dave, we're not even at ineffective. What do your average teachers do every time they clip a kid down?
They're probably looking at the kid, making eye
Turn and
contact.
stare.
Yep.
They need to prove who's in charge.
Yeah.
And you know the best advice I ever got? You don't have to prove who's in charge. Everybody knows who's in charge.
Mm.
And the more you try to prove it, the more people try to prove you wrong. In the same way in the classroom. How often does the best teacher in a school try to prove who's in charge?
Never. That's why they're the best. Yeah.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
How often does an average teacher try to prove who's in charge?
Quite a bit. And it's normally by trying to knock others down. Yeah.
And there's 25 kids spending as fast as they can to prove them wrong every day. But once you teach teachers that, average teachers and ineffective teachers will stop staring at the kid. They stop escalating the behavior. But they never, 93% of student misbehaviors because they want attention, and 7% of student misbehaviors because they want power, and 93% of adult misbehaviors because they want attention, and 7% because we're all 13. And when blowups happen in school, it's the 7% of teachers that want power that cross paths with the 7% of students who want power.
Wow.
And that teacher who turns and stares wants power. See? And they decided that kid was the most important kid in class. And the best teachers decided that kid's the least important kid in class during that moment. I'm not talking about in life. The kid sitting at the office is only unimportant now. He or she isn't unimportant tomorrow when they're not sitting in the office. They're equally important with everybody else.
Yeah.
But when you're choosing a behavior that's disruptive all learning, and now you're not in the learning environment, you're less important in terms of my time and energy than all the kids that are doing right.
Wow.
And it's never a beration. It's never a belittling. It's never that. It's just why. And it's that same way with the best teacher. The first thing, and this is, I ask teachers this daily. When a kid misbehaves in a great teacher's classroom, the first thing they do is keep teaching. Because they get to keep thinking. And it may be 15 seconds, it may be 15 minutes. They're never in a hurry. We don't outquick people, we outsmart people. And what happens is they're thinking, where's the kid at? Has he improved? Is he getting better? Is it getting worse? Have I already given warnings? Have I already used proximity? Have I already given eye contact? Where are we at in the school year? Where are we at in the week? Maybe there's only 10 minutes left till Christmas vacation. Well, I'm just going to give him a cigarette and hope he can smoke his way through these last 10 minutes. Would they never try to outquick? Does this make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
They're in control of their actions. But average and below average people feel like they're supposed to outquick. And Dave, I'm really quick. And I don't try to outsmart like a smart aleck because I might not win this time. And I am really quick. But instead, I know that's why I write books. So you know exactly what to say, exactly how to say it, exactly where to sit, exactly where to start, exactly where to end. See, I know all this, so I don't have to outquick anyone.
Yeah. Wow.
I may not to know what to do the first time when a parent says my child never lies to me, but I know what to do the second time. And I teach all my teachers so they know what to do the first time.
That's good.
And so that's what you do.
That's good. What are you working on right now? Speaking of, writing books and always thinking, like, seriously, so much wisdom, which is why you've written so many things. Do you have a project that you're working on right now?
I am mentally, I have another culture book that I've finished that I'm waiting to see if the publisher gives it a thumbs up or down or whatever. But I'm writing a book. This is a core book. I mean, a core belief system. It's how to get all teachers to be like the best teachers. That's the only solution I can think of for education.
It sounds like the book that we've been looking for. Yes.
Dave, we don't need anything else.
Yeah.
In every school in Michigan, at least, and every school, the highest flying, the lowest flying, middle of the road, whatever, in every school, there's at least one teacher that's cracked the Da Vinci Code.
It's the truth.
And you know what that taught us? We don't need anything else. It isn't resources. It isn't the principal. It isn't the students. It isn't the community. It isn't the parents. It's the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to invent anything. I have to figure out how do I get all the teachers to be like the best teacher? And I can help you do that. But if there's some new thing we have to do, I'm not smart enough.
Mm.
But I can help you be like the best teacher in your school. I can help you do that.
That's good. That's so good. Yeah, there have been amazing teachers prior to any technological revolution or innovation that we've ever had.
Right.
We simply need to tap into what works. I love that. I love it.
And think about stuff. People yell, innovate. People do all this stuff. So tell me when you stop innovating. You know what? My very best teacher, I don't need him to innovate. I don't need it. My ineffective teacher, I need him to do something different. I don't know if it's innovate. I need him to do something different. But I don't need that, flexible seating. You familiar with flexible seating?
Yeah.
Big trend in education? Mm-hmm. Okay. Dave, can you tell me at least one highly effective teacher that would be effective using flexible seating? Could you think of one? Probably.
And they're probably highly effective before they had flexible seating too.
Could you tell me at least one highly effective teacher that would be highly effective without flexible seating?
Absolutely.
Could you tell me at least one ineffective teacher you know would be ineffective using flexible seating?
Yep.
Could you tell me at least one ineffective teacher that would be ineffective not using flexible seating?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What is not the variable?
Yeah, there you go. It has nothing to do with the seating.
But I'm not putting down flexible seating, Dave, because if I have a teacher that's juiced up about flexible seating, I will do everything in my power to help them support, because they're going to be more excited about teaching. And them being excited about teaching is the benefit. The flexible seating is just a way to get to that benefit.
Yeah.
And if they're more excited about teaching because they paint a mural on their wall, if they're more excited about teaching because they do this, if they're more excited, any of those things I want to support. But I don't want to, and here's the problem is then we get confused and think this teacher's outstanding using flexible seating, so the key is flexible seating. And we take flexible seating and then we force it on people. And we even force it on great teachers who will be worse because we've made them use flexible seating.
Oh yeah, so good.
And not that they can't do the flexible seating if they need it. I just mean they would be worse. And think about this, when we went virtual in March, and the hard part was we didn't have a dress rehearsal. We just went to opening night, right? Last March. Could everyone in a school, I'm not talking about the principals, could everyone in a school, in every school, name 3 teachers they knew were going to figure it out?
Oh, absolutely.
And could everybody name 3 teachers they knew weren't going to figure it out?
That's it. Yep, absolutely.
And when you get back in person, those same 3 people that couldn't figure out virtual, they really can't figure out in person either, can they?
It's truth.
So tell me what it is we need to do. We need to help those people get better.
That's so good. And what I love about this conversation is, you just dropped some knowledge about correlation and causation, but you never use those statistical terms. You talked about the average, but you're not talking about the mean. You just make things so practical for people to understand. And we have convoluted the conversation so much in schools by focusing on the wrong things.
All the time.
Focusing on the newest tool, the newest trick, the newest get rich quick scheme, looking for that silver bullet, the magic pill, when it's been in front of us the entire time. It is the best teacher.
We're hoping it's something else, though.
Yeah.
See, if I'm an average teacher, I hope it's something else besides me.
Besides me, that's it.
Coaches love to blame participation trophies. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And you know what? I work with coaches, all the professional coaches in the United States. It's so stupid because I'm an idiot. And I'll have a coach who go, I can't motivate these kids because they've all gotten participation. The problem with the world is they've gotten participation trophies. I go, you know who else got participation trophies? And they go, no. And I go, the team that beat you last night. You know who else has gotten participation trophies? And they go, no. And I go, the team you're playing Saturday. You better figure out something else.
Oh, that's good.
And what happens is people who are ineffective hang around other ineffective people. So then we can reinforce. See, think about how many friends you know who go, that's those participation trophies. That's right, those participation. And they're high-fiving and headbutting. It's just then we can just say the problem is participate. And the best kid in your school, their bedroom's full of participation trophies. How were they able to overcome that? So stop it. Stop doing stupid things. And we have a chance of finding the solution.
I love that so much. I love that so much.
What happens, you got the Shifting the Monkey book there, which I always tell people takes about one average restroom visit to finish. But anyhow, one of the things that's in there that's so easy to understand is the blanket monkey. And another word for blanket monkey is gutless. And Dave, this is the reason we have so much average. State departments, okay? In all states, it's the world, across the world. I was with Australia last night. You know what I asked the people in Australia? I go, is it true that everybody in Australia is standing upside down, or is that just the way it seems from America? And they said, no, they're all standing upside down.
Oh,
So
good to know. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
So I'm scared to go there now. But anyhow, think about this. Let's pretend Michigan has 3 dysfunctional school districts and 8 dysfunctional schools. I'm making that up, Dave. That's not I'm a research guy. I told my wife the other day, I go, honey, I think like a dissertation, which is why I don't have any friends. And Beth goes, Todd, that's not why you don't have any friends. So anyhow, which almost could be hurtful. But think about this. Let's pretend Michigan has 3 dysfunctional schools and 3 dysfunctional districts and 8 dysfunctional schools. How many schools and districts should the State Department be dealing with, Dave?
3 districts and 8 schools is what they'd be
those
focusing on. Yeah.
They should be dealing with 3 and 8, shouldn't they?
Yep.
How many do they deal with, Dave?
A whole lot more
They
than
have
that.
new regulations for who?
For everybody.
All the time. Blanket monkey.
Yeah.
And it's because of the 3 and 8, but they're scared of the 3 and 8, and they don't know what to do with the 3 and 8.
Yeah.
So new regulations for everybody, new teacher evaluation for everybody, new A through F for everybody, new state standards for everybody. And you're a superintendent who gets blanket monkeyed.
Yeah.
And guess what you do to your principals, Dave?
We blanket monkey them as well.
And my principal friends, have you ever gotten a note that said some principals have not turned in the reports yet? And guess which principal's most offended when that happens?
Those that did.
The good ones, the ones that matter.
Yep.
And you know what they're thinking? Hey, dillweed, there's only 8 of us. You know which 2 it is. Why don't you talk to them?
Yep.
And then guess what the average principals do with their faculty, Dave?
The exact same thing.
You ever had a principal talk to the whole faculty at a faculty meeting about one teacher?
That's it.
Sometimes some of you are coming late. Sometimes some of you, sometimes some. And who's offended? The best teacher. And you know what they're thinking? What are you talking to me for? Why don't you talk to her? She's not even here yet. And then what do? We send notes home to all the parents because one parent didn't pick their kid up for a field trip. And we just see it everywhere. I read a story. I was in Keatsville, Missouri. I was a math teacher, basketball coach there, and I just didn't believe in leaving school during the day. I didn't know we were allowed to during plan time or anything. I just felt I was weird. And the bank closed it. You couldn't go through in the lobby after 3 o'clock, and school got out at like 3:30. So I couldn't do a bank account, but the drive-in stayed open until 5. And I didn't know what to do because I needed a bank account. I'm in a small town. I don't have a bank account. So finally, one day at like 4, we didn't have practice for some reason. I don't remember what it was. And so I went there and I was at the drive-thru and I asked if I could open a bank account. And they go, we need to come in. I explained, I can't ever get out until after 3:30. You close at 3. If I could open a checking account here at the drive-thru, that'd be great. If anybody comes behind me, I'll leave and let them come and get service. And then I'll pull back around so I don't disrupt anyone. The lady said, fine. I opened my bank account. Nobody came behind me. I mean, it's a town of 600 people. Okay. I go to the bank a week later and there's a sign that says, no bank accounts can be opened at the drive-thru window. And I thought, I've been in this town. My guess is there aren't a whole lot of people opening up new accounts there. And guess what then? I didn't want to go to the bank anymore. Because I knew it was about me.
Yeah.
And good people's lives are completely driven by guilt. And so what happens is we disenfranchise our good people by not focusing on the good people.
Wow, so good.
Would the bank be better or worse if they had a line of 100 cars every day wanting to open new accounts? That'd be a dream.
Right. Wow.
And this happens all the time, doesn't it?
That's it.
Yeah.
And see, and you are good people. This is why I wanted to be able to talk to you. Again, wisdom, truth, galore, but it's personality, and it's truly this from the sense of good. There's no arrogance about you. It's goodness, and you want other people to be good and to elevate good, which I so appreciate.
You know what it really is, though, is centering on what you don't like and you not doing it. That's what it is. Everybody hates getting blanket monkeyed, and 3% of the people don't do it as a result. And 97% of the people, and I'm making up the numbers, continue to do it because that's what happens to them. And it's also, we're afraid of dysfunctional people. And the reason we're afraid is because we don't know what to do. That's why my first book was dealing with difficult teachers, because that's the single hardest thing for leaders to do. And I was a middle school principal, and you can't hide a crummy teacher at a middle school because the kids will find them. And every day they're on the hunt for weakness.
Wow, that's good.
And if I don't build but what happens is if I build your skills, you want to be there. You're drawn to me You want to keep teaching. You're not discouraged. And so, and what I do is then I sort out who are the 2 or 3 people that there are people that lack skills, and I can build their skills if they care and try. And who are the 2 or 3 people that aren't going to care and try? And I've got to have them do something else. I can't live within my school because I don't have the ability to improve them.
Oh, that's good. I got to ask you this, Todd, because we've talked about a lot of your books. I'm going to ask probably an impossible question. As a father of 4 kids, I get asked probably more times than I should, which of your kids is your favorite? And I jokingly always say, depends on the day, depends on the time. With all of your books and all of the things that you've written, do you have a favorite? Like right now, if somebody said, just give me something, would your response be?
Favorite kid? Sure, Madeline. I don't like the other 2. She's the one. No, wait, it's Harrison. No, it's Catherine. I can't remember. No. Oh.
Would your answer be it depends on what you need, or is there one that you think all need?
I think it's both. If there's a specific need, I can give you that direction.
Sure.
All of my books, Dave, are the same thing, which I know makes you feel blessed if you've ordered 2. But there really are, how do you get people to do what it is you want them to do? Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's just, how do you get difficult parents? How do you get difficult teachers? How do you get challenging students? How do you get your supervisors? How do you get your peers? How do you get colleagues? So that's really what the core of them are. The book that is closest to my heart is What Great Principals Do Differently. Mm-hmm. What Great Teachers Do Differently is by far the most popular, but it's because there's a lot more teachers. But with that book, the thing I say, it's the truth. It's about life. I just pretend it's about education. My wife and I are writing a book called What Great Parents Do Differently, and it's the same book. It's the same book. I'm just using this example instead of this example and talking about your kid versus this. But what's funny is in both books, if you've read them, first of all, they're me talking. But in addition, in What Great Teachers Do Differently, I use principal examples because no teacher's defensive about a principal example. And then I go, look at what would you think if the principal did that to you? And they're going, I hate that. And I go, now what if you did it to a kid? And my What Great Principals book is full of teacher examples because it's like, isn't that offensive when the teacher does that to their kids? And they go, yes. And I go, how do you think they feel when you do it to them? Mm-hmm. I've got to make you open up emotionally. That's probably the thing I do differently than other people is I use emotion all the time and most people use logic. And I'm very left-brained. I'm a math guy, but just realize logic works with normal people. But we don't struggle with the normal people. We struggle with the abnormal people. And logic doesn't work with the abnormal people.
And emotion takes root in people. That's the secret sauce.
We've got a situation now. Think about how much the country debates on masks, which is the weirdest thing in the world, but they debate on masks. When I present, I show a picture of my mom. My mom's 96. Okay. My mom is unbelievably good looking. My mom doesn't take any medicine. She's 96. She doesn't take any medicines and she doesn't wear glasses. She's a freak of nature 96-year-old. And I thank people for wearing masks for my mom. And in your mind, you're thinking health, right? Mm-hmm. But do you see, Dave, we have a debate over health. Well, they don't matter. They don't help. It actually makes you worse. I mean, what is this? But anyhow, do you know why I asked you to wear a mask, Dave? So I'm asking for my mom. Do you know why I asked you to wear a mask, Dave?
No.
So my mom doesn't feel funny when she wears a mask. See, she's 96. She doesn't need to be funny. She doesn't need to feel funny. Wow. We're all 13, Dave.
Wow.
That's it. You know what my mom asks when I take her in a store? She goes, Todd, are people in there going to be wearing masks, or are you and I going to be the only one? And I go, Mom, I'm going to run in and check. And I go into stores, and you know what I say to the people in the store? I'm getting ready to bring my mom in. She's 96. And she asked me if her and I are the only one wearing masks. And if we are, I'm going to go ahead and just not bring her in. It's okay. I'm not offended. But if anybody want to wear a mask, so my mom doesn't wear a mask, my mom doesn't feel funny, I'd sure appreciate it. Do you see, Dave? That's emotion. That's not logic.
That's good.
We're all on the same team, aren't we? Aren't we? Dave, you know why I wear a mask? So your mom doesn't feel funny. And your dad doesn't feel funny. And your aunt and uncle don't feel funny. And so you don't feel funny. That's it. I'm not going to mandate. You can't mandate effectiveness. You teach effectiveness. You can't mandate effectiveness. We've tried. You teach effectiveness. And that's the difference.
So good. That is, I mean, you nailed it right there. You summed it up. And before we started recording, I told you at the end of all my episodes, I love to reach out to the person and say, give me that mic drop moment. You're on stage. Everybody's listening. How do you drop the mic and walk off? And I feel like you just delivered it. You
Well,
just,
sounds good. Have a good one.
no, I mean, truly, it's when you reach in, if you want to change behaviors, you have to change hearts. You have to tap into emotions.
Right.
Is that?
You start with logic, and logic works with a large number of people. But you're not afraid of calling the normal parent, are you, Dave?
I don't know.
You're not afraid of how you're going to deal with the average middle of the road student. Our fear, and I'm not picking on you in particular, I'm talking about all of us.
Yeah.
We're all afraid of how do we deal with the most challenging parent?
Mm-hmm.
How do I deal with the most challenging teacher? How do I deal with the most challenging student? You know, think about this. You can imagine now in schools, you have parents that hammer the school in social media. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about use social media like, sorry, we lost the basketball game last night. Good job, guys. You know, that doesn't even matter, but hammer social media. I had a time where a principal called me and they had the teacher, the best teacher in their school. It was an elementary school and best teacher in their school. And they let the kids choose a book for the teacher to read to them during the year. So like downtimes right before
Mm-hmm.
Christmas, if we have special days, I read to the kids. The kids got to choose a book. And the kids chose one of the Harry Potter books. I don't know them apart, but just one of the Harry Potter books unanimously. They were so excited. The teacher said, okay, then I'll start reading the Harry Potter book. And this will be our book this year that we'll read as we go along. The principal got a call the next day from one of the parents who said that she's a personal friend of J.K. Rowling and knows J.K. Rowling is a witch. And J.K. Rowling wrote these books to convert all students to being Wiccans. So she didn't want her daughter to read the book because Wiccans, because J.K. Rowling, who she knows personally, is a witch. Okay, there's a slight chance the parent was lying. I have no idea. But anyhow, I said, treat the parent as if they were good. And she goes, what do you mean? And this parent hammers on social media all the time. And she knew this was going to be on social media. And all of a sudden, then you drag up everybody that's, you know, it's been drug up over the last 4 years and you're sad about that. And, you know, you drag that up and you don't want that on social media. And I said, she goes, what would you do? I'd say, the first thing I'd do is I'd tell the parent this. I'd say, you haven't put that on social media, have you? Did you hear how kind and gentle I asked that, Dave?
Mm.
What's the parent going to say?
Not yet, or I'm sorry, or yeah.
You're right. You know what they're going to say? Why?
Mm.
The 1% will never disclose. They pretend, they seal themselves in a vault.
Oh,
Why do you ask?
Yeah.
Why do you ask? Why? My fear is if you put this on social media, it might embarrass your daughter. I don't want the other kids being mad at your daughter. You haven't put this on social media, have you? I don't want the other kids not liking your daughter. Dave, what's that parent number one concern in the world?
The daughter, that's it.
And they're concerned that the other kids won't like them.
Mm-hmm.
And they never thought about that. When I have a parent who's screaming at their kid at a basketball game or screaming at the referees, do you understand what I go and talk to them about?
About how their child would probably feel about it.
My fear is that this is going to humiliate your son. I don't want your son being humiliated. Did I tell them they shouldn't yell at the parent? Did I tell them they shouldn't yell?
Not at all.
Did I tell that lady she shouldn't put it on social media?
Not at all.
Because she'd love it if I told her. See, dysfunctional people are counterpunchers. They want negative energy and then they counterpunch. And that's what they do. I lay out with my teachers, we don't argue, we don't yell, we don't use sarcasm at the very first faculty meeting of the year, because what I would do is I establish expectations. I don't like to correct behaviors. But it's a lot easier to correct behaviors once I've established expectations.
There you go.
So if I have a teacher that chronically yells, I'm not talking about somebody who the acid broke in the science class and they're worried, or a teacher who's really good and one day lost. I'm not talking about, because that teacher will repair. You know, I don't need to, but I'm talking about the chronic. I go to the teacher and I say, but I'm not in a hurry. It could be 3 days after I heard them yell, because they're not as emotional 3 days later as they are in that second. And I go, is everything okay? And they go, why? Because see, the 1%'s always going to be protective of themselves. And I said, the reason I wondered is the other day I heard you yelling. And my fear is, if any of the other teachers heard you yell, did any of the other teachers hear you yell? They're going to go, why? I go, my fear is if any other teachers heard you yell, they're going to think you're no good. I don't want the other teachers thinking you're no good. Dave, does that teacher want the other teachers thinking they're no good?
Not at all.
Who's the only person's opinion in that entire school they care about? Their colleagues.
Their colleagues, yeah.
And see, I could have my arm around you sincerely and say, I don't want the other teachers thinking you're no good. My fear is if they hear you yell, the other teachers are going to think you're no good. I don't want that. See, with the parent, I don't want your daughter being embarrassed. I don't want your daughter being embarrassed. And what's weird, Dave, those are both sincere.
Mm-hmm.
They just never thought of it. See, I come, Dave, because I'm on your side.
Yep.
I'm not against you. I can't have a rule about you, about this. I can't have a rule about you posting on social media. I just want you to understand the potential damage before there's damage. And I'm nice. And what's weird is you don't lose relationships. What's strange is, do you know what's really weird? That teacher, the number one person they'll talk to in the school is me. Because they'll go, when I said that at the faculty meeting, do you think the other teachers didn't like it? They're not going to go to a colleague and say that, will they?
Yeah.
They're too insecure. They'll come to me. That parent will come to me and say, if I post this, do you think that'll embarrass my daughter? And Dave, I'm on their side.
You're their advocate.
I'm not lying and saying stuff. I go, you might word it this way and it might not be as much, or, maybe this or what, but that and it's their core emotion, and I'm actually protecting it.
It's so good.
And you're always kind. You're always nice. You're always doing it. And so that's important. There's things I do then if a person continued to do that, but 99% of the time, I'm just talking about the lowest 1%, 99% of the time, they'll stop. They'll stop. They've never thought of it. They've never been approached that way. But they're counterpunchers. They're ready. If I tell them don't do this, they live in the union. And that's the reason I don't document if I can avoid it, because as soon as I document, the issue becomes my writing, not their behavior.
Wow.
And I sever the relationship.
I feel like that was just Pandora's box that you just opened. That was right there. That last little statement.
Yeah. Now, if Dave, for sure, I'm going to fire you, I will document.
Sure.
Because I've already severed the relationship.
Yep.
And if there's an event, there could be one event that I'm going to fire you. And I don't mean this mean, I'm not relishing in that. I'm just saying I'm going to. But why would I sever the relationship if I'm not going to have you out of my school? I don't understand it. And it's easier. Yeah. It's easy because right now where you're in higher ed, I'm in higher ed. How many higher education people talk about document all the time? How many central office people talk about it? But it's because they don't have a better alternative. I give them a better alternative.
I feel like you give better alternatives to almost everything that's out there right now. I mean, that's the reality. It's
everything about evaluation is wrong. The people who lead the evaluation charges, who are a couple well-known people that I'm actually friends with, they're just wrong. They don't understand high achievers. And your school is driven by high achievers. They understand average people. And your school is driven by high achievers. Think about if every time I go in a classroom, I'm supposed to give 3 positives and a negative. The best teachers who want me in the rooms never want me in the rooms again.
Wow.
Because every day they add 26 negatives. They don't need somebody adding 27. Why would I do that? And we do this stuff all the time because somebody tells us, and it's somebody who's wrong. It's somebody who's average, who doesn't understand high achievers, and thus they try to do that. And they're just wrong all the time. They're wrong. And that's why I write books, because somebody tells me and I go, that's wrong. They're just wrong. And I don't mean it mean, they're just wrong. They're doing the best they know how. They're just wrong.
Yeah. It goes back to insubordinate or ignorant. Sometimes people are just ignorant. They just don't know any better.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And you do not know a leader that doesn't wish they were respected by their followers.
Yeah.
And you do not know a leader that doesn't wish they were more respected by their followers, including the very best ones. They wish they could be more respected by their followers. And it's understanding what people want. Great superintendents can get their boards to do anything, but I got to teach them how to do it. And ineffective superintendents can't get their boards to do anything, no matter how many different districts they go to. And great teachers can get their kids to do anything. Great principals can get their kids to do anything. And great principals can get their teachers to do anything. but you just got to teach them how. And everybody wants it. That's the thing that's funny. And all of this other stuff that's going on, and people say, what book would you read to your faculty? What book? I shudder when I read the suggestions, and I haven't even read them. I'm the only person I know who's written more books than they've read, but there's just stuff that's just wrong all the time. It's just wrong all the time. And I can tell you one example of how clearly this is wrong. So why would you believe the rest of the examples? But I don't do that. I just try to do what I think's right.
Show what's right. That's right. You become the best.
And I want people to contact me. I want them to ask. I don't want you to do it wrong. If you have a challenging person, you need to do it right, because if you do it wrong, you're weaker and they're stronger.
So let's talk about that. How do people contact you? Because I guarantee right now there are listeners to this saying, oh my gosh, I need to connect with you. I need Todd Whitaker in my life and in my world, in my school. How do people connect?
Well, carrier pigeon is one option. But
anyhow, and let's say it's the winter months and the pigeons aren't around as much. So
quicker way. Anyhow, my website is toddwhitaker.com. I don't have any people. My contact information's on there. And my Twitter handle's @Todd Whitaker. And a lot of people DM me on that, and then we'll interact a little, and I just ask them to email me. And then I give them information. Yesterday I talked to 4 people who heard me present the day before. What day was yesterday? Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday I had 4 phone conversations with people who had heard me the day before.
Wow.
And it's just, I just want them to get better. That's none of this. I mention books only so you have specific language. I'm really not a book salesman, and I know it may seem like it. But it's just, I want you to have the language. I want you to know how. I don't want you to guess. And I talk fast, and mainly because I'm afraid of boring people. And you can't pick up the specific things from what I just say, but you get the gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I only write the book so you know exactly what to do.
So good.
That's it. I just want you to know exactly what. And a lot of my books are based on research. I just write them casually. But, one time somebody told me, and this is so funny, somebody told me, they go, Todd, I've learned that if people talk in a way I can't understand, that probably means they're really smart. And I said, I've learned if people talk in a way I can understand, that probably means they're really smart.
That's it.
Because it was so funny. I just got off that. I told you I just keynoted a national conference just right before we got on. And some people had questions, and I talked about hire for talent. Hire for talent. That's what you want to do. Hire for skill. That's what you're going to do. That'll always overcome, has the potential to overcome everything. And somebody goes, well, what do you hire for then? Do you hire for will, or do you hire for skill? And I said, will is a skill. I didn't say talent IQ test, even though intelligence is part of it. Talent, meaning the best teacher, it isn't what are they good at. I'm going to say, what are they not good at? And you know what you say? Not really anything. They're kind of good at everything.
Wow.
They're kind of good at everything. I had a conversation, one of the conversations I had yesterday with a principal who cares a ton. I mean, just cares a ton. And they have, a lot of their teachers are on remote, and just kids are just failing like crazy, 40%, 50%. And I said, they go, what do I do? And I said, are they failing in all teachers' classrooms? And I go, let me reword it. Are they failing in the best teacher's classroom? And he goes, yeah, the best teacher has a 40% failure rate. And I go, wow, the best teacher? And he said, yes. He goes, well, normally she has a 20% failure rate. And I go, that's not your best teacher. That's not your best teacher. And what happens is you've defined best. What it is, it's the best teacher they have for college-bound, high-achieving, teacher-pleaser kids who read above grade level and don't have acne. It's the best teacher for that group. But your best teacher can work with that group and all the other groups.
Yeah, so good.
And that's like I define superstars in a way that people can understand, because we get confused what our best teacher. We think our best teacher is this, and that's not our best teacher. So anyhow, I love to hear from people, Dave. I'm honored to have a chance to work with you. One of the things you might do as you share my podcast is just call it a sure cure for insomnia. And that way, if people get, wanting to go to bed and they can't, they don't know what to do, and they've run out of whatever medicines, listen to this, they'll be out like a light. So it's an honor for me. And I just want to thank the audience for what they've done. This year is incredible. The people are incredible in education. The leaders have shown the world how to lead. School educational leaders have shown the world how to lead. Teachers have shown their hearts. They've shown their souls. They've poured it out, whether it's virtual, hybrid, or in person, or some combination therein of. The people in education have shown this, and I want to thank them for what they've done. They've really shown the rest of the world.
You're here.
I just hope the rest of the world was looking.
Yeah.
They've shown it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Great words of wisdom, great words of advice, great affirmations from a great man telling others how to be great as well. Todd, I appreciate you.
I'm not telling them, I'm teaching them, Dave.
I apologize. Yep, you got me on that one. You're so right. You're so
You
right.
hit my raw nerve.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate all you're doing, all you're saying, all you're showing, and all that you are teaching. Thank you for being you. Thank you for taking time to chat with little old me and all the people listening to this whenever and wherever they are. And again, people, connect with him. For those of you that like to look at the show notes and you'll actually do that extra step and read them, all of his contact information is down there. Those of you that just like to listen and watch, you heard the man. You heard where to connect with him. Connect with him. Reach out to him. He even responded to me, so I guarantee he'll respond to you. All right. Have a great day, everybody.